This channel is not about spreading negativity. It's about spreading passion and expressing my passion, and maybe we all learn a little bit of something along the way too. So, in this video, I'll be expressing my opinions, and with these opinions, I'll probably be showing how passionate or possibly bordering on insane I am about the Pokemon franchise, and specifically the Pokemon trading card game itself. If you enjoy the Pokemon trading card game, you might want to stick around. If you enjoyed the Pokemon trading card game, you might not want to stick around. Whether if you want to leave, that's fine. I'll see you on the next video when I'm back to covering my typical, metagaming and deck profiles and stuff. But today we're discussing basically the discussion that came about me sharing an article from 2018 with some friends and then sharing it on Twitter. So this article that I'm talking about, I originally I saw it around when it came out in September 2018. And it's called Trade Secrets: The Making of a Pokemon Card, and they interviewed Mr. Nagashima, the lead director at Creatures, on the Pokemon trading card game, how they make cards, stuff like that, about design, the art, the gameplay, balancing, a little of everything. And I actually used this article in my video, you might remember, who makes the Pokemon trading card game, or who designs the Pokemon trading card game cards, the history of who designs it, basically. Spoiler alert, Creatures Inc. has been making them the whole time. Wizards of the Coast never actually created Pokemon cards, they just published them. But I used this article back then, so I've known about this article since about around the time it came out, in September 2018. But the kind of the principles and the philosophy that Mr. Nagashima talks about in this article have really never been so shocking as they are now, because I'm really seeing the full effects of the philosophy. So in case you're new here, very quick backstory. I'm 26 and I've been playing the card game since I was 5 or 6, whenever it came to America. It's Pokemon, the franchise, has been a huge part of my life. I've competed in more tournaments of all sizes than I can count. I've met more friends than I can count. I've made money, I've lost money, I've won tournaments, I've lost tournaments, I've collected, I've invested, I've played, I've built decks, everything. And I'm very fortunate to have this channel that has grown a substantial amount in the past year, where I can talk to you all about the Pokemon trading card game, and I really, really appreciate that privilege to talk to you all about the Pokemon trading card game. So I really wanted to start this off with that statement about this channel is not about spreading negativity. I'm very passionate and I'm sharing my passion, but if you're cool with the Pokemon trading card game, you don't care about the design, you just want to play and have fun, I envy you, and please, keep that. I want you to have fun. I don't want to like shatter the glass for you. Keep having fun, enjoy the design, enjoy the cards that are coming out, enjoy it for what it is, and I'll see you in the next video, like I said. If you completely disagree with me and you think this is unnecessary, again, see you on the next video, maybe leave a thumbs down on the way. But yeah, so let's get into the topic. So the article, I will leave the link to the whole article. Like I said, some of it's about the art, some of it's about the design, some of it's about a little of everything. There are many parts to the article, but the one that I was focused on was a fairly large excerpt that I feel personally is not out of context. These 3 paragraphs here is the big thing. And when this came out back in 2018, the game was very good still. We had not, tag teams had been revealed as a concept. They were going to be coming out in Japan, and they wouldn't be coming out in North America for like another 5 months, I believe, at the time, maybe 4 months at the time of this article, since it was September 2018. But tag team mechanic has just been revealed at Worlds. I thought Worlds 2017-2018 was a fantastic format. It's one of the formats I'm building a collection of decks from, because I enjoy it a lot. There's a lot of deck building options, there's a lot of gameplay interaction. There's a little bit of variance, as there always is, things like Let Loose, things like Team Rocket's handiwork, but a really healthy format that I felt like really good players could play and succeed, but you could also play some of the more simple decks like Buzzrock and Rayquaza that had a low skill floor, high skill ceiling, and you could still do reasonably well with those. So I thought it was a very healthy format at the time. So reading this and reading some of the things I'm about to talk about here, at the time of this article being written, I thought we were seeing this in effect already. I thought, oh, they're talking about, adding variants so new players can come into the game and feel like they have a chance. Yeah, Let Loose did that. Buzzrock, Rayquaza, like I said, those decks weren't incredibly hard to play at a competitive level. They might have been hard to completely master, but that was good. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Like, variance is a part of every card game and they're doing it fine. I don't really care about this article because I already knew they were doing that, but that's cool. Variance is part of the game. But now we're seeing the variance taken to a whole new level because they've just accelerated the power creep with tag teams being worth half the game, and it got to a point where I personally believe, if you ask most players, they'll tell you that you almost have to play 3 prize Pokemon in your deck right now at some effect, save for very few decks, and those few decks have issues against some of the biggest and most popular tag teams like ADP and Luke Metal. And also, I understand that. I do want to say that. So, back to Celio. Also, you'll notice there's no green screen. I just ripped the green screen down because I wanted this to be a more authentic video. And, I'm fine with having production quality for the typical video. But, this is me, so enjoy the mess back there. So when a card game makes their new mechanic, they're going to want to make that mechanic at least involved in the forefront of the format and try to cultivate a format where the metagame is going to include that new mechanic. Now, for Pokemon, I strongly believe they do not have to have a new mechanic in the format to sell cards, because Pokemon cards are going to sell whether people are competing or not. Pokemon cards are not sold because people compete. They're sold because of Pokemon, because of collectors, because of kids, because of people playing casually at home, because of just cracking packs, because of buying and selling on eBay, whatever it is. But typically a card game mechanic will come out, and the creators of that card game will want that mechanic to be somewhere in the forefront of the metagame that ends up developing, right? Like, they don't create Zacian and Metal Saucer and Metal Goggles and Zamazenta and Rusted Sword. They don't just create these cards by chance. They want those cards to be at the forefront. It's the box legendary. Same like Yveltal EX, Darkrai EX, some really, really popular and strong Pokemon from back in the day. They create these cards because they're iconic Pokemon. These are the cards that they're putting the strong abilities on. They want these cards to at least be what the game focuses around. Not that you have to have four copies of this card in your deck, but that this card will be strong, and either you're playing it or you want to keep it in mind. Every card game is like that, or at least most of the card games I've played in, many, and all the ones I've played in are like that. So I understand they create the new mechanic and they want it to be at the forefront, and that's never been a problem for me. It's been a problem for me twice, I should say. Once around 2013 to 2015, when big basics were kind of the thing, and even if you played evolution Pokemon, it was very rare, and a lot of times it was just to support the big basics. But they fixed that with Sun and Moon. Sun and Moon was an insane era. No editing, this is raw Celio. They introduce the GX mechanic with the GX attack. They work like EXs for the prize card, but they have to evolve from regular Pokemon if they would in the game. And I think that's an amazing, important, unique concept that needs to stay in the Pokemon trading card game. I've stayed with Pokemon my whole life, even though I've dabbled in Magic, I've dabbled in Force of Will, competed in regionals, Force of Will, qualified for events in Cardfight Vanguard, played Runeterra, played Hearthstone, put money into all these other games. Pokemon has always had me coming back because it's so different from the other card games. It doesn't use the mana source, the mana mechanic that almost every card game out there uses in some way. It has prize cards. It has a lot of draw and a lot of search. It has evolving. Evolving is a core concept of the Pokemon game, and seeing them, I believe, make the same mistake again as they did with big EXs back in 2012, 2013, 2014, I was really upset to see them push another new mechanic that is all basic Pokemon, when evolving should be such an important part of the game and makes it really what Pokemon TCG is. So the early Sun and Moon era was great at that because they implemented GXs. Some were basics, some were stage 1, some were stage 2s. They all had 3 attributes to them, which was an amazing thing, whether that be an ability in 2 attacks or 3 attacks. And most of those attacks on most of those Pokemon, I'd say 50% plus of GXs had at least a shot at being in the metagame and competitive play in standard format. Most of those Pokemon had attacks that you wanted to choose between, not just jam the same attack every turn. So it was really good. It was thoughtful. So I just wanted to preface the portion of the article we're going to read right now with my thoughts on, I understand that you want to make a new mechanic and push that into the game, and that's perfectly fine. And almost every time the Pokemon trading card game has done that, it's perfectly fine. It's a new era. Let's make something fresh. Change is always going to happen. The only thing that's constant is that there's always going to be something changing, and I'm fine with that. You know, we can't play 2010 format forever because that's what people on Twitter like. Everything, it's going to be changing. You know, it might get less skillful, more luck dependent, less luck dependent, whatever. But bottom line is, right now the game doesn't feel like Pokemon, and this article tells us why. So let's start at the top. Another aspect Creatures keeps in mind is accessibility. As a card game ages and new ideas are introduced, it's common for games to either become more intricate or for cards to creep up in power. Nagashima acknowledges the latter has been the case, but according to him, it's difficult for a card game to avoid both. So he's saying that cards will typically become intricate and creep up in power. One might outweigh the other, but typically they'll both happen in most card games. There's a path where you can keep the numbers exactly the same and keep making cards, but the only way to differentiate them at that point is to make really complicated logic, so you constantly need to make more complicated stuff. Creatures knows Pokemon must at some level be something any child can learn quickly, so it's opted to bump up the numbers instead of introducing too many new ideas. Starting around the time of the Black and White era, 2010, the company began making a conscious effort to find ways to make it harder for new players to be trounced by veterans. We designed the cards in a way that even if a kid is playing up against somebody much older, it will still be a game where they can at least feel like they're fighting on an even playing field, Nagashima says. For instance, many Pokemon abilities deal more damage per successful coin flips, and cards like Catcher can swap an opponent's active Pokemon out for a weaker one instantly. These abilities may not make the game more balanced, but tend to make matches more exciting for newer players who might otherwise get trounced by pure skill. Now, please note that this bottom paragraph, the only thing that's being quoted by Nagashima is the word balance. The rest is paraphrases by the writer and editor. The words that Nagashima did say exactly himself, according to this article, are: there's a path where you can keep the numbers exactly the same and keep making cards, but the only way to differentiate them at that point is to make really complicated logic. They said, we want to design the cards in a way that even if a kid is playing up against somebody much older, it will still be in a game where they can at least feel like they're on an even playing field. Okay, so let's review this. I'm fine with keeping it accessible for kids, and guess what? Even if I'm not fine with it, it literally doesn't matter what I think, because Pokemon's the largest media franchise in the world. They can do whatever they want with their products. Creatures Inc. can do whatever they want with their products as long as the higher-ups approve of it. So it doesn't matter if I think it should be accessible for kids or not. I think this logic is lazy, and I think this logic is flawed. My best argument against this, to just kind of express what's going on in my head, is you don't nerf down chess so kids can play it. You still let kids play the same chess that everybody else is playing, because they get better at it, they take lessons, they learn, they have fun. I started playing chess at 6 or 7, and I wasn't very good when I started out, but it was fun to learn and get better and read books on it, and, you know, go to chess lessons. And by the time I was 10, I was playing in 18 and under events and actually beating people older than myself, and that was a huge accomplishment for me at the time, and it felt really good. I wasn't a genius, but I worked hard to try to get better at something. And here they're basically saying, let's feed kids coin flip cards so sometimes they can beat adults based on the coin flip, and they'll feel better and they'll keep playing the game. Maybe that works for a few months, but then they're just going to leave the card game and go on to something else. And you see that happen so much. Like, I've seen a lot of seniors age up into masters, and with the recent standard, go to Hearthstone. I mean, a lot of people are going to other card games anyway because PTCGO sucks, but that's another topic for another day. For them to, so there's a couple ways you could look at this, right? Nagashima acknowledges there's a path where you can keep the numbers exactly the same and keep making cards, but you have to make really complicated logic, you have to make really more complicated stuff. I don't think the logic has to be that more complicated. I felt that they did a fine job from Sun and Moon Base up to Lost Thunder with keeping the power level the same, and the logic didn't get increasingly harder, increasingly more intricate. They did a really great job back in RS through PK, Ruby Sapphire through Power Keepers. That 4-year block of sets, or 3.5, whatever it is, that for those years, the original EX years, those cards are so equal in power that they're still played in a format called EX All, or RS through PK, that a lot of veterans enjoy, including myself, because those cards were equal in power level to themselves. The Diamond and Pearl era, the same kind of thing. Those cards were very equal in power level, and honestly not that much more powerful than the cards that came before them for quite some time. You could argue the RS through PK and the Diamond and Pearl era had more intricate cards, and you're probably right, but from my personal experience, I can't find exact numbers on this, but I would love to for a future video. This juniors and seniors age divisions have dwindled down since they've implemented this new philosophy around 2010. Juniors and seniors for a long time, I would see tournaments where they can't even reach enough players to like have a decent cut, or like League Cups, just 1 senior and 2 juniors show up, things like that. But back before 2010, I personally remember there being more people for juniors and seniors, but I will have to find hard evidence for that. This is just my firsthand experience and my memory from 11 years ago. So I don't think kids want to get into a game where they are only going to beat people better than them if there's a coin flip involved. Like, and then what's the point of getting better? Just rely on the coin flips. But this logic is really flawed to me, and I think it goes with a lot of what Nintendo does. It is all flawed to me. Nintendo companies, I know this is Creatures, it's not technically Nintendo. But the thing is, the competitive players are never going to be the spotlight of this. It's always about the kids, but the kids are competitive players too, and we have age divisions for a reason. And you know, they've talked about in other articles how they're making the game to make an interesting metagame and for the players to find new decks and new combinations. And so the designers, really their thing is to make an interesting game. That's what they're there for. The design team is to make an interesting game. Sorry, my camera just flashed and it was just the preview screen. We're good. It distracted me though. Their job is to make an interesting game, right? The people collecting the game, the people playing casually, you know, the kids learning with starter decks, all of that can be done while keeping the game balanced. A really great example is Prime Pokemon from the HGSS era, actually, when they started with this philosophy. Now, see, just side note, this philosophy of that they say started around 2010, I understand it did. They took away Poke Powers and Poke Bodies, which was a mistake from a design point because it let them have unique things. But they did start dumbing down the game in 2010, 2011. But they also made a really great idea in 2010, 2011 with Prime Pokemon. Prime Pokemon had a different border. They looked fancy. They were cool. The art was like in your face, real big to Pokemon. And really awesome looking Pokemon got featured on these cards. They were all made to be at least slightly playable, but they weren't overpowered, and they did not have their own mechanic. Prime Pokemon did not have a prime rule. They were not worth more prize cards. They still had to evolve from regular Pokemon. They were just a new kind of rarity that looked really awesome, and they were a little harder to get, so they would be great for collectors. kids that were getting into the game would think they look cool, so they would want to build a deck around them. They were the chase cards of the set, but they were also playable, but did not change the game mechanics in any way. This was a genius idea. It made casual people happy, it made collectors happy, it made stores happy, it made players happy. So players could have these regular Pokemon, not multi-prize, and they worked just like regular Pokemon, but they looked cooler. So they were a little more expensive, which made stores and collectors happy. The look cool part and the awesome Pokemon that they put on there made the kids happy, and then the usable attacks and the multiple attacks and the generally trying to allow these cards to be played in the metagame made the players happy. I think that was just amazing. Now, going on to the EX era, you know, I have my gripes with that. Watch my History of Power Creep video for that. Going on to the Sun and Moon era, they made GXs, which did add an intricacy to the game. You now have one GX attack to use per game, but that was exciting to kids. It's like, oh, I have this one, like, a really, really pivotal attack that I can choose to use whenever I want. So I get to choose when I use this big attack, but this big attack is given to me, right? I don't have to perform some crazy combo to get to use this attack. I start the game with a GX counter. I can flip it whenever I want as long as I have an energy that my Pokemon needs, and I get to use this big pivotal attack. But so kids got to do that. They, like, even if the kid was misplaying the kid, it could be an adult beginner, but they typically talk about kids in this article. The person playing, I should say, could make the decision to use their big, exciting, pivotal attack, right? It might not win them the game, but they still got to be a part of the game. And these Pokemon were worth 2 prizes, which, you know what, that's fine. Your opponent still has to knock out 3 Pokemon. Your opponent has to evolve these GX Pokemon a lot of the time. They were not on a different power level, mostly, than the EX Pokemon. Sure, they got... these Pokemon got the GX attacks now, which EX Pokemon didn't have, but at the release of Sun and Moon, Evoltal EX was still played, Mega Mewtwo EX was played, Greninja Break, another different mechanic, was still played. We had EXs, Mega EXs, Breaks, and GXs all being played at the same time, alongside popular single prize decks. Vileplume was used, Vespiquen Flareon was used, Zoroark from Breakthrough was used. When Guardians Rising came out, of course, Garbodor and then Garbotoxin were used, which were very strong cards. But we had like 4 different mechanics plus base Pokemon being used. Evolution, big basics, little basics, single prize focused, stage 2 setup decks, everything was being used. So that was great. I felt like the Primal Clash through Sun and Moon format, although some people, you know, you could argue Deciplum was toxic because of Forest of Giant Plants. Sure, item lock. Nobody wants to get item lock. Tech of Wobbuffet into your deck. Another time, another story, another video. It was really great that the generations were... It was the time when the generations are touching, right? We've got the XY block and the Sun and Moon block. Obviously, there's going to be disconnect somewhere, but it was really nice to see the new mechanics being playable on basic Stage 1 and Stage 2. Regular basic Stage 1 and Stage 2 Pokemon from both eras were usable. Pokemon Break were usable. EXs were usable. Mega EXs were usable. I thought that was just beautiful to see. And the Sun and Moon era, of course, you know, like I was saying, 2 prize Pokemon. There have been great formats with no multiple prize Pokemon. There have been great formats with EX and GX Pokemon. I don't have a problem with there being 2 prize Pokemon. That is not design mistake, in my opinion, as somebody who's played every single version and era and rule set and format and, you know, year of the game. I don't think that at the base of it, having 2 prize Pokemon is a design mistake. I do think, however, that 3 prize Pokemon have added such variance to the game. Your opponent can have an Eternatus and you whiffed an energy 1 time, so they're just going to say Dread End 3 times and the game is over. Your opponent can, you know, luck into a 6 energy turn 2 Centiskorch VMAX start. The game might just be over. Your opponent can luck into a turn 2 going first, turn 1 going second Alter Creation and have double boss in the hand, and you don't get to manipulate the hand, or they just draw back into it because they built their deck correctly. And, you know, the game is over in 3 turns. That level of variance is even worse than the coin flip variance. The level of variance at the power level and accelerated thrust of power creep has happened due to the tag team Pokemon having high HP and high attacks and very pivotal GX attacks on basic Pokemon that don't require deck space, that don't require evolving, that don't require any form of interaction or skill or execution to even get onto the board. The fact that you can just start the game with a tag team, and then they had to even push harder to get VMAXs more strong, and VMAXs still don't overpower tag teams. Tag teams, I don't think, I'm not saying the tag team mechanic in general was a mistake. They could have made it like legend pieces. They could have made them the same, two Pokemon on a card with differing attacks, maybe different kind of energy costs, so you could put them in different decks. But I think the 3 prize rule, the rule that your opponent takes 3 prizes based off of these Pokemon, and at the power level had to be buffed up enough to make them worth 3 prizes, that is where the integral mistake happened. And that's where I think that the game balance and the lack of skill and the increase of variance and the lack of fun throughout a Pokemon game, I think that's where that all comes from. I will say, if we had a real ranked ladder to grind on a real PTCGO client like Hearthstone and Magic Arena and Runeterra has, then I might appreciate the speed that the tag teams brought to the format just a little bit, because I would want to grind through ladders. And I don't care if I lose quick, because I'll just grind back up and go for my rank, right? But in a game where our only option is to compete in real tournament formats like Swiss Top Cut, and then the Players Cup where it's 50 and you don't go up and down a rank, you have 50 and you have to do as best as you can in every of those 50 tournaments. I definitely think that skews it a bit. Would I say the game was designed well if we had a ranked ladder on PTCGO? No. But would I probably mind it a little less, because at least games are getting over faster and I can either lose fast or get into my next win? Yeah, I might mind it a little less. But at the end of the day, I think it's just an integral design mistake. And Creatures is their logic, I really believe, is fairly flawed, because they're saying they're doing this so kids can play and enjoy the game and beat experts. But why do we want kids to beat experts? We want kids to have fun. Yes, we want everybody to have fun. What about all the kids that got into the game when they were 6 years old, like me, and now they're 26 and they've spent the past 20 years buying cards, playing in tournaments, traveling to tournaments, upset about losses, proud of victories? And what about those people that grew into 26-year-old adults like I did? So those are just left out to dry, apparently, by Creatures, from what I'm hearing from this. That they just want to make a game where the new kid that's buying some cards can win. But those kids don't even get a chance to grow with the game if the game is just going to turn into a coin flip frenzy, or who can bench their tag team and take 6 prizes in 2 turns. And with the VMAXs, what's upset me is the VMAXs that they're pushing into the meta. Mr. Nagashima said in an article on Pokemon.com, we wanted to make Eterna's VMAX very strong because it's this big towering monster of a Pokemon in a video game. I love that. I love that they bring the video game influence into the card game. What I don't love is they made this card a 340 HP Pokemon with an ability that nobody can interact with. Basically nobody can interact with. It's very hard. None of the cards that interact with it are really able to fit into the meta, like Galarian Weezing, but hopefully we'll be able to get Galarian Weezing into the meta with that new card coming out in Shining Legends, or Shining Fates. What a name. And it has 1 attack. It has no choices to be made with the attack. It has 1 attack. It's either you swing for a lot of damage or you don't. There's no choices to be made. The ability, there's no choices to be made. The one card that could, interact with that card was Belelba Embraceman. And what did they do? They banned it. They banned the one card we had in standard format that could actually be put into decks and let your skill of knowing you want to build your deck like this, and when you want to play the Belelba instead of a draw supporter, that was something that could actually interact with Eternatus VMAX, and they banned it. If you stuck around to the end of the video, I'll, you know, this article will be in the description. You can decide if you think the rest of the article needs to be read to have that context be in context, but I really don't think that this excerpt we looked over today is out of context. I think everything you need to read is here. Like I said, some of those things aren't direct quotes from Nagashima, but the things in line with the quotation marks are. So I'll leave this link. Again, guys, I'm not here to spread negativity. I'm here to spread passion, share my experiences, share my passion, and hopefully we all learn a little bit along the way. It's just so disheartening that the game I've played for my entire life and that I devote every free hour of my day to for the past year or two, especially since the beginning of 2020 when I really went full time with this. It's just sickening that the people who are in charge have such flawed logic, and I'm not even sure if it's for the money or because the collectors are who get the money. So print all the secret rares you want, you know. But to have really no I'm sorry, one last point I need to make is that they made this new international travel award structure before the pandemic, you know, for the last couple of years prior to the pandemic happening and events being canceled for a year. But we had this new international championship structure where to get the top 16 stipend, you pretty much want to go to all 4 internationals. Why the hell would I want to travel to 4 international championships, empty thousands of dollars out of my bank, spend every weekend playing 2 League Cups, the other weekend traveling to a regional somewhere across the country, if you're telling me the game is just supposed to be decided by a coin flip sometimes by a player who doesn't deserve the win? I'll see you next time here on Celio's Network.